soldiers would have had Jesus lie down on his back on top of those 2 pieces of wood. And then they would have stretched out one of his arms on that crossbeam that he had just carried out to Calvary. And they would have lined up that spot right underneath your wrist between the ulna and the radius with a hole that was already in that crossbeam. And then they would have driven a nail through both, flesh and timber. And they would have bent it back on the back side of the cross. And then they would have taken the other arm and stretched it as far as they had to, yanking as hard as they needed to line up that same spot with another hole on the other side. And again, drive a spike through both flesh and timber and bend it back on the other side. And then while still lying on his back, they would have bent his legs at the knee and put one foot on top of the other and placed them on a little ledge, a little lip, a little step that came out of the vertical pose. And they would have driven one spike through both feet and into that ledge. Then they would have hoisted up the whole thing into the air and slammed it into a hole that was already in the ground. Imagine the body. Painful. Excruciating. The dehydration. The exhaustion. The loss of blood. Suffocation. Oh, and those nails holding you in place. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it is what we wouldn't have been able to see on that cross. The worst of it, God's wrath, God's anger, God's justice, the torment of hell, being forsaken by God, abandoned by your own Father. What we didn't see, right? So true also of what kept him on that cross, huh? It wasn't the nails that kept him on that cross or the pieces of rope that may have been used. No, it was his love. His love for you, his love for me, his love for the world. Nothing was going to take Jesus off of that cross. No one was going to take Jesus, remove his body from that cross until every last one of our sins had been paid for. And paid for in full. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. It was about the 3rd hour when they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left, and Jesus in the middle. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." When the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes, dividing them into 4 shares, one for each of them. They cast lots to see what each would get. The undergarment remained. It was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. "Let's not tear it," they said to one another. "Let's decide by lot who will get it." So this is what the soldiers did. And sitting down, they kept watch over him there. The people, too, stood watching. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "So you who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, come down from the cross. Save yourself. Come down from the cross if you're the Son of God." Even the rulers sneered at him. In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him among themselves. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. Let this Christ, this King of Israel, come down from the cross, that we may see and believe he trusts in God. Let God rescue him now, if he wants him. For he said, 'I'm the Son of God.'" In the same way, the robbers who were crucified with him heaped insults on him. Soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you're the King of the Jews, save yourself." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise. It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour, for the sun stopped shining. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?